see it the first time, you see some of the relationships, but you really don't, you don't have time to understand all the subtext. And it's so much deeper than it is. It's a play you really need to see a bunch of times. Because it gets richer and richer and richer with the relationships, and it's a play that it's universal. It has the relationships that you and I will experience, and perhaps if we live long enough, we'll even have to experience the memory loss. So it's very touching. It's a wonderful show. It's too easy, I think, to look at it and see that it's maybe fluff. It is not fluff. It is really a deep show. So it's exciting.
I've learned about relationships and how difficult they can be and how exciting and also how loving, even though they may not look that way. There's so much going on underneath the surface in our lives and in the lives of these characters. So it's really good it's been a really good opportunity to transfer what we've been talking about here on stage to my own life when I meet people.
Well, I think it really just emphasizes the preciousness of life and making sure we don't neglect some of our relationships through our life, and that's what it's done for me.
I have learned so much. Number one, I have learned that I had so much to learn in regards to doing a production. Every time I do one, I can't believe how much there is to learn. But I see it now in such a deeper light, on so many different levels that I never really thought of before when watching the movie or even reading the script before we started. I just didn't think of the depth and the levels of the emotions and the relationships of the people behind the scenes. It's just, I hope it comes across in what we do, because it's been so much fun to kind of get to know Chelsea and her relationships with others. So I'm having a blast.
I learned that characters are much more than what they seem to be on script, and a lot of scenes tend to change by acting them out. Like in various parts, there have been what we thought they were about, and after acting them out a few times, we realized that they're a completely different thing.
I'm an only child, and I grew up in California, and my parents and I used to go on what we would call movie marathons. We would drive down to Westwood, and we would try to cram in as many movie screenings as we could in one weekend. And it was 1981, and it was that little period of time between Christmas and New Year's, and in the theaters at that time were Reds, Time Bandits, On Golden Pond, and Ragtime. All of those movies were playing at the same time. And of those four, On Golden Pond was probably the one that I was dragged into kicking and screaming the most. I knew probably very little about it. I was 14 years old, but I knew enough that I thought, gee, you know, it's going to be sappy and sugary, touchy-feely. Yeah, I didn't want to know. And, of course, saw the movie and was just blown out of the water by the performances. And after all this time coming back to the piece and doing the play on which the film is based, which has most of the same verbatim material, I've come away with a whole new appreciation of just how good those performers were. Because on the page, the playwright, Ernest Thompson, doesn't really give you that much to work with. It's up to the actor to create moments that are alive and interesting. And believe me, I've come away with a whole new respect of just how truly great some of those performances were. And the other thing, as it relates to On Golden Pond, I don't really consider myself a filmmaker outside of some of the work that I post on YouTube. But I do remember something as it relates to On Golden Pond. I was watching it on cable TV. This was back in the early 80s. Probably watching it for the 50th time. And my dad came walking through the family room. And he said something to me that I've never forgotten. He said, "You keep watching this, Sean, and you'll know how to make good movies."